transmissions detected.
Kill them all.
Hello my friends. Today I document part 2 of the layer called the drift. Was it from something man did, or was it a natural event? Mr. Donnelly tells us in the book that the world had rebounded to all its glory. It was thousands of years after the flood when something catastrophic happened. And our weather is not natural. It's a byproduct of whatever happened. On page 45 he says, "We shall see hereafter that man, possibly civilized man, dwelt in this fair and glorious world. This world that knew no frost, no cold, no ice, no snow. That he had dwelt in it for thousands of years, that he had witnessed the appalling and sudden calamity which fell upon it, and that he has preserved the memory of this catastrophe to the present day, in a multitude of myths and legends scattered all over the face of the habitable earth." Now if you consider all the comets, the earthquakes, floods, famines, pestilence, and wars that were said to have taken place during the time we call the Dark Ages, I mean, you put this all together, it sure does seem like they saw the book of Revelation play out before their very eyes. Now in chapter 2 it says, "The origin of the unstratified drift is a question which has been much controverted. Louis Figuier says, after considering one of the proposed theories, no such hypothesis is sufficient to explain either the cataclysms or the glacial phenomena, and we need not hesitate to confess our ignorance of this strange, this mysterious episode in the history of our globe. Nevertheless, we repeat, no explanation presents itself which can be considered conclusive, and in science we should never be afraid to say, 'I do not know.'" Yeah, they would never let you get away with that today, buddy. According to the people in charge now, there's still no explanation, by the way. As for comets and asteroids, well, those are even stranger and more mysterious. Our ancestors were, for some reason, obsessed with them. But life would have never had enough time to so-called evolve, like they say, for millions of years, before it would have been stomped out by one of these numerous rogue comets, or dare I say rocks the size of mountains hurling through our universe. And the fact that comets come back like clockwork and exactly on time on a schedule disproves the theory of these being planet killers. They're for something else. I mean, we have several above us right now in the heavens. I think it's 11. And NASA and their fans are super excited about them too. They can't wait to play Space Rangers with their weird little friends. But do these celestial bodies affect the Earth in any way? Sure, why not? They're blamed for it anyway. But we've only seen them put on light shows, and they always fly right past us. According to the scientists who are monitoring these today, some may not even be comets whatsoever. They're so silly. It's also been theorized that a war could have deposited the drift. It's told by many ancient legends how the people witnessed the use of strange weapons. Whatever they saw, it took place mainly in the sky, so it's what made people think God was responsible. We know humans do this. When tribes on islands in the Pacific first saw airplanes in World War II, they thought they were the gods. Next, we got the Carolina Bays. They're found all up and down the United States. They give the impression that the coastline was bombarded with naval artillery, but they say millions of years did it. Ignore that the drift proves something catastrophic took place all at once, and let's just say it was from evolution. If you look at the old war-torn areas that were bombed out, like in Normandy and Vietnam and other places, if no one knew what happened there, you could just tell them it's Carolina Bays. The holes all look the same to me, even the large nuclear explosions. Even the regular TNT, it produces the same effect as what's claimed to be an asteroid impact. They both have tiny pieces of melted and fused metal all around them. Some have glass, the whole 9 yards, depending on what it was. Enormous amounts of rock Dirt, gravel is also ejected outward. Depending on the yield of the explosion, you can include enormous boulders. Now, if you scale that up using a highly advanced weapon, more powerful than we can imagine, it would definitely produce the destruction that an impact would have, if not more. But then I had to figure what was going on. The fact that if something did happen to everyone, the reason why they told such a fanciful story, well, to tell a really horrible thing to a child and not traumatize them, you have to be gentle. You can't tell the graphic truth. You got to break it to them a little gently. Maybe you would say rocks and fire fell from heaven and, God did it, right? If you tell the children someone killed their families, guess what happens when they get older? It's vengeance. It becomes a never-ending cycle of death, and we know this. In theory, it would be very beneficial to a young population or a society if you hid the bad parts from them and made up a fairy tale, that's for sure. And next, the oldest stories from the natives. They all tell about the sun growing hotter and scorching the earth with fire. Rocks, gravel, and mud and fell from above. Almost like Revelation. They all claim that the sun stood still, too. The legends say the same thing. At sunrise one morning, it just decided to stay in one spot and not move for the entire day. Now, how in the world are we flying through space if we have a sun that does that, Mr. Donnelly in this book tells how, like Job and Joshua and many others, may have lived during the same time, and that someone may have separated all of it so that it would fit their story. And I think someone hid the ugly truth, That's probably why the elite and those in power are so obsessed with their underground areas. They more than likely are scared this will surely happen again. And it says in the book, like a thief in the night. That's what they're scared of. On page 263 it says, and even that marvelous event so much mocked at by modern thought, the standing still of the sun, at the command of Joshua, may be after all a reminiscent of the catastrophe of the drift. In the American legends, we read that the sun stood still. Ovid tells us a day was lost. Who shall say what circumstances accompanied an event great enough to crack the globe itself into immense fissures? It is at least a curious fact that in Joshua chapter 10, the standing still of the sun was accompanied by a fall of stones from heaven by which multitudes were slain. And in the record it says, it came to pass as they fled before Israel and were in the going down to Bethron, that the Lord cast down great stones from heaven upon them unto Ezekah, and they died. There were more which died with hailstones than they whom the children of Israel slew with the sword. And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed, until the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. Is not this written in the book of Jasher? So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven, and hasted not to go down about a whole day. It goes on to say, and there was no day like that before it or after it, that the Lord hearkened unto the voice of man, for the Lord fought for Israel. The book of Jasher was, we are told, a very ancient work long since lost. Is it not possible that a great dim memory of a terrible event was applied by tradition to the mighty captain of the Jews, just as the doings of Zeus has been attributed, in the folklore of Europe, to Charlemagne and Barbarossa? Now that would be weird if time stopped because of the sun, wouldn't it? What sort of place do we live in? Next, in the most ancient sites, we see vitrified or melted stone, solid rock burst into a million pieces. In Egypt, it's the best example. Everyone's seen them. Time has its own effects, but the oldest statues show us damage from this immense or fervent heat that happened only on one side. And it shows that they were blown to pieces. Yep. In the drifts themselves, you can find melted rock. Yep, the rock got so hot that the metals evaporated from them. Can you believe it? Now it got really bad for everyone, like the Aztec in South America. They caught some of the blunt of it. But I was told that, the Aztec were barbaric. They sacrificed to demons and stuff. Well, the Aztec priest's prayer is in the book. It's quite long, but it's worth checking out. It sounds like to me someone who worships the Most High, not a sorcerer that worships a serpent. Coincidence? Maybe. But it's very strange. Here's a piece to show how bad it was and maybe where all the orphans came from too. The Aztec prayer says, "Wilt thou after this fashion destroy the wretched sick that cannot find rest, nor turn from side to side, whose mouth and teeth are filled with earth and scurf?" It is a sore thing to tell how we are all in darkness, having none understanding nor sense to watch for or aid one another. We are all as drunken and without understanding, without hope of any aid. Already the little children perish of hunger, for there is none to give them food, nor drink, nor consolation, nor caress. None to give the breast to them that suck, for their fathers and mothers have died and left them orphans, suffering for the sins of their fathers. Now, what could that be? And they say they all live together, too. Like the Navajos and the Pueblos, they all at one time lived together. It says, the Navajos living north of the Pueblos say that at one time all nations, Navajo, Pueblo, Cayeteros, and white people, lived together underground in the heart of a mountain near the river San Juan. Their food was meat, which they had in abundance, for all kinds of game were closed up with them in their cave. But their light was dim, and they only endured for a few hours each day. I mean, can you imagine that? Only a little dim light every day for you to use. But for the record, I don't think the Aztec were evil people who sacrificed their children whatsoever. I think that's what we were told so that we would ignore everything they said. Historians claim that all the legends are fiction. They're fairy tales. Remember, it may be what they told the children, but if a nation of people on opposite sides of the world tell the same series of events, they more than likely happened. On page 263, it says, the inhabitants of Central Europe and Teutonic races who came late to England placed their mythical heroes underground in caves, in vaults beneath enchanted castles, or in mounds which open up and show their buried inhabitants, alive and busy about the avocations of earthly men. It's weird. Those sound like bunkers they're talking about. The people were busy, going about the avocations of earthly men. You wouldn't do that in a cave. You'd kind of sit there. It would suck. Mr. Donnelly claims at this time in the 1800s it was well known by scholars and historians that they knew absolutely nothing about the discoveries that they were finding. So they visited all the natives of every continent. Mr. Donnelly says, with pen and paper they wrote down history as they were told it by the chiefs, the elders, the priests, and the shamans. I'm sure they were honest though, right? On the other side of the world, the Arabians also spoke about this awful time, and in the aftermath of the event, they were visiting huge cities and palaces that had been deserted. One particular one was called the Brass City, and it was supposedly located in a far-off land somewhere in the Atlantic. And what they find is very telling, and it's why we're told to ignore everything those dudes say. On page 273 it starts, and Talib and his party go on still further and find the city of Brass, a weird, mysterious, lost city in a desolate land, silent and all its people dead, a city once of high civilization, with mighty brazen walls and vast machinery and great mysteries, a city whose inhabitants had perished suddenly in some great calamity. And on the walls were tablets, and on one of them were inscribed these solemn words, "Where are the kings and the peoples of the earth? They have quitted that which they have built and peopled. And in the grave they are pledged for their past actions. There after destruction they have become putrid corpses. Where are the troops? They repelled not nor profited. And where is that which they collected and hoarded? The decree of the Lord of the throne surprised them. Neither riches nor refuge saved them from it. And they saw the merchants dead in their shops. Their skins were dried and their bones were carious. And they had become examples to him who would be admonished." Everywhere were the dead, lying upon skins and appearing almost as if they would speak. Their death seems to have been due to a long period of terrible heat and drought. On a couch was a damsel more beautiful than all the daughters of Adam. She was embalmed as to preserve all her charms. Her eyes were of glass filled with quicksilver, which seemed to follow the beholder's every motion. Near her was a tablet of gold, on which was inscribed, "In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, the Lord of lords, the cause of causes, the everlasting, the eternal. Where are the kings of the regions of the earth? Where are the Amalekites? Where are the mighty monarchs? The mansions are void of their presence, and they have quitted their families and homes. Where are the kings of the foreigners and of the Arabs? They have all died and become rotten bones. Where are the lords of high degree? They have all died. Where are Korah and Haman? Where is Shaddad, the son of Ad? Where are Canaan and Pharaoh? God has cut them off, and is he who cuts short the lives of mankind, and he that makes the mansions to be void for their presence. I am Tadmor, the daughter of the king of the Amalekites, of those who ruled the countries with equity. I possessed what none of the kings possessed, and ruled with justice, and I acted impartially towards my subjects. I gave and bestowed, and I lived a long time in the enjoyment of happiness and an easy life, and emancipated both female and male slaves. Thus I did until the summoner of death came, and disasters occurred before me. And the cause was this: 7 years in succession came upon us, during which no water descended on us from heaven, nor did any grass grow for us on the face of the earth. So that we ate what food we had in our dwellings, and after that we fell upon the beasts and ate, and there remained nothing. Upon this, therefore, I caused the wealth to be brought, and meted it with a measure, and sent it by trusty men, who went about with it through all regions, not leaving unvisited a single large city, to seek for some food. But they found it not, and they returned to us with the wealth after a long absence. So thereupon we exposed to view our riches and our treasures, locked the gates of our fortresses in our city, and submitted ourselves to the decrees of our Lord, and thus we all died, as thou beholdest, and left what we had built and what we had treasured. Now that is crazy to me. How awful. We know nothing. What you get out of all that, if nothing else, is something from above fell to the earth, caught things on fire, exploded, the earth broke apart, and then it flooded with mud. Maybe man was responsible, and it wasn't on purpose. Maybe they did it on accident. It was that laid waste to our earth. It's what caused the destruction we see in all the ancient sites that we have no idea, how it happened. The old legend of King Arthur says he and Merlin witnessed a red flaming object in the sky one night, and it split into 3 separate objects and hit the ground. Nothing grew in Great Britain for years. The soil was poisoned. I take it a comet does the same thing as a nuclear strike does, doesn't it? And the lands where they didn't have flaming rock and gravel fall on them still felt the earthquake. They were hit by the tsunami, the poisonous gas, the sun and moon got dark, right there before their eyes. Now, they had no idea what was going on. To most people, they thought the world was ending. All sorts of different out-of-the-ordinary things would have happened. Even terrifying accounts, as I mentioned before, where great chasms opened up and swallowed entire cities. Islands that were there that morning were gone that afternoon. Thousands of feet mountains, they sank below the waves, and new ones rose up thousands of feet in their place. In other places, some people suffered far worse a fate. We're told that this fire scorched the ground so badly in places. So great was the heat that the rocks actually melted like wax. Stars began to rain molten metal down from heaven. So much metal, physical metal, was lying around. Men were said to have gathered it all up. What's that about? You see how strange this world is? In other places, when the ground opened up, it erupted out enormous amounts of sand. Mixed in it was the abundance of gold and precious jewels. And on page 267 it says, these legends may be explained by the fact that in the Ural Mountains on the east of Europe, and South America, in South Africa, and in other localities, the drift gravels contain gold and precious stones. Now, they say that the diamond, well, let me just read it. The diamond is found in drift gravels alone, and it's pure carbon crystallized. Man has been unable to reproduce it except in minute particles, nor can he tell in what laboratory of nature it has been fabricated. It is not found in the situ of any of the rocks of an earth origin. Has it been formed in space? Is it an outcome of that pure carbon which the spectroscope has revealed to us as burning in some of the comets? So see, they think that like a comet can be just straight up diamond coming. Now, in another account, a poisonous fume was said to have blown into a city with over 1 million people, every man, woman, and child, every living creature in it, and in the countryside around the city was found dead. Not one dog or even a rat survived. It was unknown at the time what it was, but obviously it was some sort of very toxic gas, oxygen depletion, something. An efficient weapon, right? What happened to places like that, though? I mean, afterwards, who assumed authority? Anybody with the balls to step up, probably. They had to bury all those people, too. But guess what they did? Let your mind wander because, quote, none were given tombstones. Of course they weren't. Are all of these stories the bowls that the angels poured out in Revelation? I mean, these people are just having it bad. Bible scholars claim it hasn't happened yet. But I wonder what the people thought when they lived through all of this. They must have been so sad and taken back. You know, God had forsaken them. And when he didn't show up, what did they do? I mean, or did he show up? Now you got gigantic cathedrals, bridges, Tartarian buildings. All of this was being constructed during this time of such catastrophic, like, it seems highly unlikely that you would do that, you know. Another odd thing I found was most nations' oldest written records go back to this event and no further. It's weird we're not told that, is it? Oh, we get hundreds of thousands of years and we know exactly what happened. According to the historians and the scientists of the 1800s, this is untrue. No one tells of actually living in the world that was before them or before this event. Just vague explanations of what destroyed it and the aftermath. And if I didn't know any better, I'd say we're stuck on a time loop. It just keeps happening over and over again because it looks like it happened to every age. If you just say, okay, let's just listen to each one, then that means they all went through it. The Sumerians, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Romans. What are we finding every time? Like every time we get reset, does technology turn around and bite us? Maybe. Most people in the drift zone where its destruction was at were said to have been underground. They thought the whole world suffered with them, and most of it did. But it was a very long time before they came out of their caves and hiding places to the surface for whatever reason. Now it says there were many generations that never even saw the sun. They lived and died in the cave system. Some lived and like they never came, outside. They were under the sea too. Stone Age people didn't live under the sea, did they? Apparently they did at one time. Even God warns us, right? You can't hide under the ocean either. Those that survived above the ground or were the first to document it, whatever it was, they claim they watched as groups of people emerged from their bunkers and caves and saw daylight for the first time, and one account says they came out from their warm hidden places with strong doors, but all of their elders, their leaders, their parents, those who were matured, their governors had all left them long ago. None among them had a single gray hair on their head. They were all quite young, but they were barbarians. No one had taught them even the basics to life. They didn't know what happened or why they were in hiding so long either. All they knew was they were told that dragons and monsters attacked their world before they were born. I mean, what really happened? Nobody knew, but how creepy of a thought, right? You see, you put that story out there, and of course, dragons don't exist. They were comets, they were asteroids, but you see how it's done? We ignore the most important part, the people who came from underground. What was that about? Now, the dates had to be forgotten, they didn't know. New ones were made up to explain what happened to those people. It's almost like everyone spawned in, though. Where did the people come from? How did they stay safe? Like, if it were the little season, how would everyone show up and be born? Maybe it's easier just to spawn right into the Matrix, They wouldn't even know themselves. Now, we have records that say there were only a few people that survived. Every palace was empty, every castle was silent, every city was without life. Their gold, belongings, their estates were all free for the taking by any passerby. This is something we all knew happened, but it's denied by those who write history. Why? It says, and how did mankind come to be reduced to a handful? If men grew in the first instance out of bestial forms, mindless and speechless, they would have propagated and covered the world as did the bear and the wolf. But after they had passed this stage and had so far developed as to be human in speech and brain, some cause reduced them again to a handful. What is it? Something, say these legends, some fiery object, some blazing beast or serpent, which appeared in the heavens, which filled the world with conflagrations, and which destroyed the human race, except a remnant, who saved themselves in caverns or in the water, and from this sea, this handful, mankind again replenished the earth. And they spread gradually to all the continents and the islands of the sea. What is going on? But there's always been that one group, of superheroes that mankind knew about who was different from the rest of the population. They were often said to be very kind and peaceful, but not to be trifled with. Very powerful, they had magical weaponry. They're depicted traveling through the sky on chariots or flying machines, living in the far north, the deep south, on a high place or an island. In the stories, some of them lost their lives during this event, and the ones who remained, get this, after they came from their hiding places with the strong doors, and they found the earth desolate, they fled to a far-off land that was off limits to everyone else. Imagine that. Page 135 says, the traditions of the ancient Britons tell us of an ancient time when the profligacy of mankind had provoked the Great Supreme to send a pestilential wind upon the earth. That's how those cities just come up, everybody's dead. A pure poison descended. Every blast was death. At this time, the patriarch, distinguished for his integrity, was shut up together with his select company in the enclosure with the strong door. There it is again. Here the just ones were safe from injury. Presently a tempest of fire arose. It split the earth asunder to the great deep. The Lake Leon burst its bounds, and the waves of the sea lifted themselves on high around the borders of Britain. The rain poured down from heaven, and the waters covered the earth. Now see, again, an enclosure with a strong door. Too many say the same thing, but an enclosure to me is different than a cave. Saying an enclosure suggests a man-made place, especially when they say they went to their warm, secret places. I don't know. In the book, they tell you how the legends say that Earth is an island surrounded by water and then surrounded by a great continent of ice. And on that continent, just past it, a giant race lives there. It is so weird they would even say that. But before anyone came along and twisted the words into their version of events, we may have made sense of it all. The story we get is after a devastating event worldwide, and God only knows what it was. But the survivors came from their caves and their safe places and claimed the empty palaces, the mansions, the castles, the cathedrals, the government buildings, the estates. They used the gold and treasures that were laying around to pay other men to dig the cities out of the mud for them. They stepped into power when no one was around to challenge their authority. History was indeed fabricated. So it was never actually a divine right to rule. They made that nonsense up, and greed kept them marrying their own and protecting the rights that their grandparents completely made up. According to the record of long ago, no one was left alive who was in charge, and everyone found their wealth and assumed the power they had. Now, from the pharaohs to the King of England, they all perished in this event. It was many, many years after the flood when this happened. Society was at a golden age. The earth was filled to capacity. Everything was perfect. Huge, beautiful cities. The world seemed to get along a little better, too. And some people I know can't have that. Suddenly, it was reset back to square one again. And it wasn't too long ago either. So every claim or right to rule, again, with no exceptions, was completely made up. As I mentioned, it could have all happened in the last 250 years or several thousand. Who can say? Was it the Dark Ages? None of us witnessed any of it. Neither did the people who told us about it. It was before their time, too. Just like us, we only know for sure about the short period we're here. We're surrounded by snakes. Just like they were. They lie about everything. It's their mark, so we shouldn't be surprised in any way what's what. As far as the myths and legends go, I take them with a grain of salt. I know there's a God most high over heavens and earth, and that's all I really know, The powers that be try to make me think I'm crazy, and there's not one. And when I doubt it, or I just remember, they worship Satan, so yeah. And there's a hidden world we can't see around us. How strange is that? A world we don't know, a different reality from ours, existing in the same place. Apparently we go there or through this place when we die. CERN, they try to open up doorways. The elite and rulers of our earth worship the things who live there. They summon from there. They build altars to the spirits and demons who reside there. And as I said, have the audacity to tell me there is no God. Mm-mm-mm. On page 176, the word father or dad is told to us. And here I would note a singular coincidence. He says, the fire that fell from heaven was the divine Tata. In Egypt, the name of the deity was Tata, which signified father. This became in the Hebrew Yahweh, from which we derive the root Jah, Jehovah. And this word is found in many languages in Europe and America, and even in our own as Dada, daddy, father. The Tupi Tata was fire from the Supreme Father. Who can doubt the oneness of the human race when millions of threads of tradition and language thus cross each other through it in all directions like the web of a mighty fabric? We cross from one continent to another, from the torrid part of South America to the frozen regions of North America, and the same legend meets us. Now, there's no telling what's been hidden from us. Our world seems to be a sort of living matrix, or maybe a colossal holodeck, terrarium, snow globe, something. At times, it's like a program overloads itself. It glitches, and maybe that's what resets itself. Or a better explanation would be, wicked men have always played God. They've always played Dungeons and Dragons and Space Rangers with their friends. In turn, they destroy everything they touch. Whether it's on purpose or on accident, it's their total lack of respect for life. Unless we're suggesting God sits up there and hurls rocks at us when he gets the notion someone's lying. Maybe, just maybe, there's another explanation, though. And that would be something far-fetched. Maybe AI was found in the ancient mysterious cities with the strange machinery they had. Maybe they found chips in the deserted labs underground in those bunkers, and they were remade. And mankind, in a way, resurrects this ancient evil, this ancient technology every time, and that's what we've done many times over and over again. Greed and man's insatiable taste for power over another causes us to dig it all back out of the mud every time. Humans make the little season every time. Wouldn't that be weird? A bad episode of like the Twilight Zone. As I mentioned, it just seems so out there. But the book is worth the long read. Trust me. It's wild, but you'll hear all sides. I never found the answer to any of my questions either. Not there or any other place I looked at. I only found more mysteries and more confusion than what I started with. But imagine this, a layer of debris that's situated like a blast zone exists and nobody knows where it came from. It affected the entire Earth. Better yet, nobody wants to admit it. Think of the strangeness, though. What if there were bunkers that could have been already here inside these big mountains, built many years ago by an advanced race? And that's where I think they can, they think they can hide today. Underground sanctuaries of some of mankind's best work. An entire technological age, as many people, if not more than currently live now, lived before us and were taken all out in a flash. Was it the millennial reign? Maybe, maybe not. Who could say? If people were not to taste death before his return, the answer would be yes, but who knows? A whole other world of people's gone. Forever a memory. The controllers now have us worried about comets, making the people think they're alien ships flying through space towards us. The insanity never stops. That's why you have to ignore what goes on in the heavens. Watch for signs, take notes, but don't let it consume you. Perhaps they did create AI before the flood. It would make more sense. The angels knew the future, so it'd be easy way for them and the powers of the air to ensure they could enter our world at will. And if that be the case, it would explain the resets, the weirdness afterwards, the machines, the colliders, the advanced weaponry, and the way they act now. Grown men are like children. If you give them a dangerous toy that they shouldn't have, they'll shoot themselves in the foot. I'm sure this would be known by a heavenly entity who knows everything, and he knows, just give it to them, they'll kill themselves. Maybe what we see that looks like a crater from an asteroid or a comet, maybe it's not. Maybe it's an explosion of dark matter, some other unknown powerful device that made man, long ago, get deleted because there's nothing new. It is possible it all went down each time with help from outside forces. Whatever it was, it's so confusing, but on so many levels you can't deny the facts. Soon we will face it again, I'm almost sure of that, because history, our reality, repeats itself. It's on a never-ending loop. The people after us won't know much about what happened to everyone before them either, just what they may find that didn't get destroyed. How can we even make it a day in this crazy world, with that kind of history, with that kind of nonsense that goes on around us? We have to have hope of something better to come. I say stay calm. Let the drift stay a mystery. Don't be amazed at the nonsense you see. Let the comets pass us by. Let aliens and their little buddies play Starship Troopers with each other. If the Millennial Kingdom is come and gone already, or if it hasn't, does it really matter? It's all in vain anyway, my friend. But it's good to know, though. So free yourself from this beast. Enjoy your food and drink. Enjoy the time you spend with your fellow man and those you love. Don't worry about what comes tomorrow. Live like there isn't one, because all the days are numbered. Have faith in the Most High and never forget what the carpenter told you. And that's pretty much all you need to know. It's just what I needed to say.
Be excellent to
My love
each
to
other.
you all. I'm Wild Dog, and I am out of here.
Time seems to have frozen, but the mind can be fooled. As the days pass, I discover.
Sorry.